even possible to make money as a freelance writer anymore? Or are all the AI robots taking our work and our jobs and clients are just clearing out? There's just no more money available. So if you've been struggling for clients, if you have been thinking those two things, this video is for you. And we're going to go over how you can kind of use the end of this year, which is one of my favorite parts of the year, to get those diamond clients, dig up the gold nuggets, and actually make some more money as a freelance writer in less time. So we're going to go through that with the September through Q4. That's one of my favorite times of the year to get clients. It's when they're finishing up projects. It's when they're trying to use their budget by the end of the year. It's when they're pre-planning for next year. And for me, September to January, February, March, maybe April, somewhere in there is like some of my best work of the year. So we're going to get into it. I'm here to help you. I'm here to build a business where you're actually earning money, you're working with dream clients, you're fully booked, but your schedule is totally sustainable and not crazy. So we're going to go over number one. So let's talk about identifying our diamond clients. This is the number one thing, because I feel like when freelance writers are making that shift to winning the end of the year, to really using up September through January, essentially, to get their marketing done, they're not understanding where this kind of diamond client idea comes from. It's not that you just appear where the diamond clients are. That's not how it works. A lot of times there is this idea that you're like, oh, I just show up and then clients will just know that I'm the best, or they'll just see my samples, know that I've been around the block for a while, or I've written for these great publications, or I've written for these competitors of theirs, and poof, I will get the work. And that's just not how it works. You have to dig for the diamond clients. That's your job. And this is the best time where the soil is the most rich and dirty and filled with all the good like germs, all the good stuff, right? This is the good time to do it. So when we're identifying those diamond clients, I often talk about a couple of different things. So one of those things is that your diamond clients make a certain amount of money. And these are the ones that pay the great rates. These are where their budget and your rates align. That's why these things are really important. It's not that you just find a client who pays well. This is kind of working backwards. If you're like, oh, I just arrive and the client will pay me well, and that's not how it works. We're looking for the clients who we already know are way more likely, the probability that they would be able to pay great rates. They would be able to be at the rates that you're setting. That's what we're looking for. So I always talk about kind of startups are 3 to 10 million, probably more like 5 to 15 million in revenue or funding as your minimum base. That is your minimum viable client. That's like the lowest you can go in revenue to actually get a client. Then when you're moving up to a business, let's say it's a more mid-sized traditional business, it has a certain number of employees, it's not so much a startup, you're looking for at least 5 to 50 million. I would probably make that 10 to 50 million or 20 to 60 million, somewhere in there nowadays. So when we're kind of looking at this year, 2024, it has been kind of a weird year. I know that my Wealth Lab students, my breakthrough community, have been kind of seeing the same things I have. So in my business, in my six-figure business, things have been going up and down in terms of response rates for LOIs, in terms of just like interest and not, in terms of how things have been going with summer versus other times of the year. So we want to make sure that we're kind of using a set of averages. So your response rate for your LOIs, right? So we're reaching out, we're finding these diamond clients based on those revenue ranges, based on the niches that you're in, based on the types of projects that you see on their websites and their LinkedIn and the stuff they're promoting. And then we're sending our LOIs. So when we're sending those LOIs, we're looking for that 10 to 30% response rate on average. Now in my business, I give that number because I've been doing this for 11 years, 10 to 30%. Are kind of the lows and the highs. So somewhere in there is good. Sometimes, because we're working on averages, your number will be lower. And I will just tell you, this year, my number has been lower than 10% sometimes. It's been higher than 10% sometimes. I haven't gotten 30% this year, but I feel like over the last 11 years, those are the benchmarks. So usually, you know your LOIs are working if you're having a 10 to 30% response rate. If you're someone who's working for magazines and you're digging for diamond clients through finding the top publications or looking through websites that show how much writers, get paid or how much the rates are, then you're kind of looking for those bylines. You want to make sure you're kind of reading those magazines, paying attention to those, what they pay, and kind of collecting those. And your pitch response rate should be about 10% still. That's still kind of the going rate. It's been about 10% since I started 10 years ago. So you should be around there. Now, these are the numbers that we're kind of paying attention to, because a lot of times I talk to writers and they've been there for a while. They've been freelance writing for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, sometimes 10 years or more, and they're not cutting clients by revenue. They're just like, oh, I went for a small business, or I went for this, or oh, all my clients are using AI. And then when I kind of dig up more information about their clients, we get on a coaching call or they become a Wealth Lab student, and we kind of start digging into the meat and potatoes of their client base. It's all of these small businesses that can't afford to work with a professional writer, a big writer that is really going to give impact to their business. They're kind of budget conscious, and they're like, $100 for a blog post is a lot, or $200 a blog post is a lot. So the match there, the fit between small business and freelance writers, or even freelance content strategists or copywriters, is just not there. So you have to be aligning with the diamond clients who have the revenue, which means when they have that type of revenue, they have a budget. They usually have a budget that they're working with for marketing and content efforts every year. And our job is to plant those seeds. So this is number 2. This is the second thing that we're talking about. Planting those seeds is really important. Your response rate to LOIs is going to go up. Your ideal diamond client revenue ranges will change based on the types of projects you pursue, how you change your business, how you want your schedule to be. But your job is to plant those seeds. So for me, I always do a big marketing push, a big push of LOIs, September through the end of the year, and then usually in January. But this is my favorite time to do it. Like I said, there's lots of good grubs in the ground right now, and it's your job to plant those seeds and water them and do all the good stuff. So when we're looking at fall, like September, I guess it's fall through winter. So September and Q4, September through December, push out those LOIs. This is the time to do it. It's a really great time to get end of the year work, to get beginning of next year work, to get work right now. For me, this has been the most fruitful period of my business. And that's coming off of, usually, for me, July and August are either dead or I have a ton of work. So for me, summer can be, I'm super busy and I have no time to myself, or it's like totally dead and I'm just working on current projects, or I'm marketing. So for me, I've always consistently seen in my business September through January-ish, February, March, maybe, that big push of marketing feeds me the rest of the year. It's really good planting season, especially September through December. So your job is to hit those 50 to 75 LOIs or pitches a month. So the pitches are going to go to your magazine clients, and your LOIs, your letters of introduction, are going to your business clients, of course. And you're looking for 50 to 75 a month, or 1 hour of marketing a day. Now for me, I've said this many times, when I was doing 50 to 75, I would get 65 and I'd be like, oh, I didn't get 75, and I would beat myself up. Or I'd get 58 and I would beat myself up, or I'd get 48 and I beat myself up. The deal is that if you find that 50 to 75, reaching that number, is you beating yourself up or feeling imposter syndrome, or feeling like all of those creeps are coming in about, oh my God, there's no work and there's no money and there's no clients and there's all these robots taking my work, move to the 1 hour a day. For me, the effort goal of 1 hour a day of marketing made me reach the same numbers and do the same work and get it done, plant those seeds, without the whole rigmarole of beating myself up, making myself feel bad, or going through all of these different emotions that really demotivated me from getting the marketing done. So those things have to go hand in hand. The most work that you can get done on marketing for the next few months, that's the goal. And I did have a student, I had a Wealth Lab student who put out a huge marketing push over basically December. She's kind of ramped up in November, but she did her big push in December, and that fed her the whole year. I had a Wealth Lab student do that, and that fed her whole business the whole year, because she did this huge marketing push. So I can't tell you enough that if you really want to make a shift to win the end of this year and basically win the beginning of next year, now is your time for your big marketing push, September through December. You want to make sure you get all of those fall, like we're trying to get things together after Labor Day. We're trying to get our projects done to keep our budget for the next year. We're trying to use up that budget. And we're also pre-planning. So pre-planning for projects usually starts in October. for really great clients who are pre-planning for January. Then November and December is kind of the slower ones. And then if you're getting a project in January, they were late to the bus. So the deal is, this is the time to get those 50 to 75 LOIs or do your 1 hour of marketing every day. Now let's talk about number 3 here. Let's talk about a little bit of this market update that I mentioned before. So things are weird. I've been asked before about election years. Is my business different? It hasn't been. I know other people have said their business changes during election years. I haven't seen that ever in my business. I've been through how many elections? Like 4 now. I think 4 elections in my business, and I just haven't seen it. I have seen way more annual cyclical type cycles in my business versus external circumstances. So when we're looking at the market, like I said, your LOI response rate or pitch response rate will hover somewhere. Your pitch response rate will usually be around 10%. So it could be 5% to 15%-ish, but usually around 10%. Your LOIs could be lower than 10% one month and higher than 10% the next, but somewhere on average, year after year, you should be somewhere between 10 and 30%. 30% is like, you're killing it, you're getting a lot of marketing done, you're getting a lot of yeses, you've got your diamond clients dug up, you know exactly who you're targeting. 10% is pretty much average. You're like getting the right clients, you're understanding what's going on, you're having money coming in. So when we're looking at the market, yes, this year has been weird, just like the last few. I just want to make sure I mention that I've been through many elections in my business. I haven't seen a lot of things that have had to impact my business in that way. But I do think this year has been kind of weird, where there are times where I feel like clients have been holding their breath. And this has happened to me in years before, where there's certain years where clients just like hold their breath for like months at a time. They're like, well, we're not doing any projects. And then when the fall comes, they're like, oh shit, we only have 4 months left in the year. We have to use our budget or we're going to lose it. So we want to make sure that we're kind of paying attention to that. These are the kind of updates that I've seen, is like LOI response rates are up and down. Just getting new clients is up and down. But the goal here is always planting seeds. And there will always be external circumstances that you can't control. What you can control is your attitude and your effort, among other things. But our attitude is to keep a positive attitude about making progress every single day in our business. I don't care how small it is or how big it is, but you need to make progress every single day in your business. And you need to put in a good effort, which means planting those seeds, doing your marketing, and really paying attention to your business and how it's kind of flowing throughout the year. Are you getting better clients? What do those clients look like? How can you target more of those? So that's really important. And then the last one here, we're going to talk about templates. So number 4 here, we're talking about our LOI templates and pitch templates. So if you are struggling for clients, if you are afraid that there's no money, if you're afraid there's no robots, you need to get to templates and send a bunch of them. So LOI templates, templatizing my LOI was one of the best things I ever did for my business. And I templatize them by niche. So I get my LOI template, I always call it a drive-through LOI, and I have, 25 of them for all these different combinations of niches or niches. So I'll have a real estate one, I'll have a real estate and prop tech one, I'll have a real estate and travel one, I'll have a real estate and food one, whatever my niches are, I'll have all these LOI templates for them. And I feel like for me, just kind of understanding that you can templatize a process or a system, that makes it's so much easier to get it done, especially when we want to shift into that like max gear for the last end of the year. So getting that template in place, putting those pieces together, that's really important. And for my students, and my own business, of course, but my students too, this has been a huge weight off their shoulders. It helps them get their marketing done in less time. They have a template ready to go that they can do some light customizations on and send those LOIs. They can get back to their deadlines and paid work. They can use this to kind of update over time with new clients or skills or getting into new niches. It's something that's flexible and adaptable. That's what you want. And your pitch template, if you're going after magazines, this is something too that it's not so much I guess it is a template, but it's also kind of a format. So it's kind of this format where you have certain sections that you're always filling out for your pitches. The more you can kind of understand why that works and how it works and the way to format your pitches for your magazines, the more better pitches you can send out. And you can also make shifts right now to get more clients, articles, magazines, business clients, all of that stuff by the end of the year. So this is something too that I think really helps. And we've talked about all of these 4 things. and I've put them into a cheat sheet. Now, these are the most important things that I think really put the pedal to the metal in your business. That's why I made the cheat sheet. So if you go to mandyellis.com/cheat sheet, basically everything I just told you is in a cheat sheet, so you don't have to forget it. It's easy to remember. How many LOIs? What's the process? What questions do I ask on calls once I get that client? How do I onboard somebody? How do I move forward? How do I attract the right clients to to my business through my website and LinkedIn? So if you go to mandyellis.com/cheat sheet, you will get all of these major metric movers in your business as a cheat sheet, and then you can go through them, make all the edits you need to do, and always have a quick reference piece so that you can really kill the end of this year. The last thing that I want to go over here is a question from Stephanie. So Stephanie asked a question. She says, I'm a copywriter, but I can't figure out how to show my work. I call myself an agency's agency, and this means I fill copy gaps for agencies such as brand naming, brainstorm sessions, or social media posts. But how can I show others that I write if the other agency is the client? Sometimes, like in the case of a brand name gig, I sign an NDA. So this is a great question, and this doesn't just apply to people who basically run an agency or work in an agency model or have agency clients, but also for people who ghostwrite or sign NDAs. So there's a couple different things here that we can do. So as long as your contract and NDA don't say like, hey, you can't show your work publicly, you can show that work publicly. So you have to make sure that your contract doesn't say like, hey, you can't post any of your work on LinkedIn or your website or any public platform. You have to make sure that NDA doesn't say that. Usually this isn't a problem. Like if you sign an NDA, that's usually about proprietary processes or how they do something or why they do something or documents they give you so that you can do your work. But the NDA is, if you're doing a ghostwriting gig, you want to make sure that you're kind of clearing that with them. And this is kind of similar. So if you're like an agency's agency and you're filling gaps for other agencies, as long as you know what the agreement is, like, hey, I'm ghostwriting and this is what it says, like I can't show any of my work publicly, we can take a set of steps for that. But most of the time, that's not the case. Most of the time, writers fret about this, and they don't actually have an agreement about it. There's nothing written down in a contract or NDA saying they can't show their work. So you need to show your work. Now, if you had an NDA or you had some kind of ghostwriting agreement or an agency saying like, hey, since you're kind of like filling gaps, you can't talk about this, we have another couple ways we can deal with this. So we can put something on our website that says, hey, my portfolio is by request. If you would like to see clips, send me an email. Boom. Now they can send it to you and you can send some clips just via email, not have them available publicly. 2, we can go to our client and say, hey, can I have 2 or 3 clips? Can, these 3 linked clips, can I have those just to send via email to new potential clients so that I can show them I actually do this work? Most clients are like, yeah, as long as it's not the whole portfolio and you're not telling them all the agreements or all the NDA stuff, sure. So pick a few clips, go to your clients, your agencies basically, and ask them, hey, or like who the agency that you're filling them out for. Ask ask for certain clips that you want to share via email. Most of the time they say yes, and then you can share those. Even sometimes when you have an NDA or ghostwriting agreement, it will say in there, hey, no, you can't do this unless you ask via email. So if you just ask them for certain clips that you can share via email with potential clients, most of the time they'll let you do that because you're only sharing it with a handful of people. You're not posting it publicly. And of course, you're sharing things there. Now, let's say there was a bar on everything. Let's say essentially you created all this work and all of it is under lock and key. The other way you can do this is if a client asks, you literally tell them that, hey, all of my work up until this date has been under NDAs. I've been ghostwriting or doing thought leadership or working for agencies, but I can tell you that I have worked for Fortune 500 companies. I have written content for, the top tech brands. Like you won't name who it is, but you give an identifier. I've worked with Series B startups. I've done this, like you're giving identifiers. And in terms of the clips, you would say, hey, I've written case studies, white papers, blog posts And then you can explain a little bit about how you did it. So you'd say, yeah, when I approach a blog post, I typically do this kind of research. I typically interview these kinds of people. The process is usually this long. And if you can kind of give them some identifiers and you can explain, here's what I've done, and kind of the brands, like the general overview of brands, like maybe they're on the Inc. 5000 list, that gives new clients enough to say like, oh, okay, like she just signed some NDAs and like, this is generally where it is. And if you can explain what you did and how you did the work, that usually seals the deal. They'll get on a call with you. You can talk things through. And then that new client will basically be like, oh, okay, you know what you're talking about. I like this. Let's kind of move forward with this work. So there's lots of different ways that we can handle this. Most of the time, you can just get a few clips. And most of the time, your agreement doesn't even say that you can't post it publicly. If it did, like I said, ask for a few clips. If there's everything's under lock and key and your clients are like, no, you cannot share anything anywhere ever, like I said, go with big identifiers, Fortune 500 company, top tech brand, like top 100 brand in home and garden or something. Explain, tell them a bulleted list of types of work you've done and then how you did that work. That process of explaining how things are, like your clips and things being under lock and key, usually gets your clients to the next step of wanting to work with you and really giving them enough information that you know what you're talking about, even though there's no like physical samples available yet. I also would try to work on getting some samples, whether those are trade magazines or other types of publications or some kind of place that's not under an NDA or a ghostwriting agreement, so you have something in the future. But there's lots of ways we can handle this, so don't stress about it. Use one of those tactics, Stephanie, and hopefully you'll be able to use some clips. So if you like this video, if you feel like it's been helpful, feel free to give it a thumbs up and subscribe. I also want to remind you that all of these things, how to identify those clients, get those right diamond clients to you, really make sure you're following the right steps for your marketing and making sure that you are asking the right questions on calls to dig out those gold nuggets. Those are all in my free seasoned veteran cheat sheet. If you go to mandyellis.com/cheat sheet, you can grab it. Next time, we are going to talk about your new pair of glasses. This is one of my favorite concepts to talk about, and it has to do with niches and identifying clients and really getting to new income levels. So that'll be our next video. I hope you found this helpful, and I will see you next time.